His champagne glass clinked gently against hers as he stood before the crowd, announcing their engagement. The same day, in the quiet of my apartment, I held a positive pregnancy test in my trembling hands. His child, our child, across the crowded ballroom, our eyes met. His smile remained perfect and composed, while mine faltered, crumbling under the weight of the future we had once planned together. They say revenge is best served cold. But vanishing from his life while carrying his heir, that would scorch him forever. I would not beg for what was already mine. Instead, I would build something greater, an empire powerful enough to one day eclipse the legacy his family had spent generations building. 3 years later, I returned to the city. I had our son by my side. Ethan's picture-perfect engagement had already fallen apart, and his company teetered on the edge of bankruptcy, just as I had quietly intended. The Wellington Hotel ballroom shimmered beneath crystal chandeliers. The city's elite sparkled in diamonds and tailored suits. I smoothed the fabric of my emerald silk dress and held tightly to the small velvet clutch in my hand. Inside it was the pregnancy test I had kept all these years. A reminder of everything that had led me to this moment. 2 years with Ethan had brought me here. Tonight, I had planned to tell him he was going to be a father. I spotted him near the far end of the room, looking every bit the heir he was, his dark hair neat, his suit perfectly fitted. My heart fluttered just as it always had when I saw him. Ethan Mason, heir to Mason Industries, the man who once promised me the world, the man whose child I had carried alone. I started toward him, but stopped when he stepped onto the small stage where the band had been playing. The music quieted. Ethan tapped his spoon gently against his champagne glass, drawing the attention of every guest. "Ladies and gentlemen," Ethan said, his voice strong and clear, "thank you for joining us this evening for the annual Mason Industries Gala." I smiled, proud, hopeful. "Tonight is particularly special," he continued, scanning the crowd. His gaze swept past me as if I were invisible. "I have an announcement to make." My breath caught in my throat. "I'd like to invite Vivian Chen to join me on stage." A stunning woman in a deep red gown stepped forward. Her hand slid into his effortlessly, like it belonged there. My stomach turned. "As many of you know," Ethan said, "Mason Industries and Chen Global have long been competitors. Tonight, we are proud to announce not only the merger of our companies, but the merger of our families." Silence fell. Ethan pulled a small velvet box from his pocket and opened it. My hand went instinctively to my clutch, feeling the hard edge of the pregnancy test inside. "Vivian Chen has honored me by accepting my proposal of marriage." Applause thundered through the room. Champagne flowed, and my world collapsed around me. I stood there, frozen, as Ethan slid a sparkling diamond ring onto Vivian's finger. My vision blurred. The tiny test in my bag felt impossibly heavy. Yet somehow, I stood tall. Years of business school and corporate training took over. No tears, no scene, not here. I turned away and walked to the bar. My movements were calm, controlled. I ordered a glass of water and tried to slow my racing thoughts. "Amora, there you are," Ethan said warmly. I turned. He stood just behind me, Vivian still at his side, smiling like nothing had happened. "I wanted you to meet Vivian," Ethan continued. "Vivian, this is Amora Davis, our marketing director." Marketing director, not the woman he had lived with for 2 years. Not the woman he had told he loved just this morning. Just a colleague. I extended my hand. I was surprised by how steady it was. "Congratulations on your engagement," I said politely. Vivian smiled. Her teeth gleamed under the soft chandelier light. "Thank you. It has been so difficult keeping it a secret for the past 6 months. 6 months, while he had still been coming home to me every night, while he had still been planning a future with me." "Excuse me," I said, keeping my smile in place. "I need some fresh air." I walked calmly toward the terrace, each step deliberate, rehearsed. Outside, I gripped the cool stone railing and let the night air fill my lungs. My phone buzzed. A message from Zara, my best friend. "Just saw the news. Are you okay? Where are you?" I did not answer. Behind me, the door opened. Ethan stepped out, alone. "Amora," he said gently, "we need to talk." I turned to face him, my face blank. "About what?" "About how you led 2 lives at once. About how everything between us was a lie." "It wasn't a lie," Ethan said, his voice low. what we had was real. But the engagement, this is business. The Chen merger will save Mason Industries. My father has been planning it for years. And what about us? I asked softly. What was the plan for me? He looked away for a moment. I never meant to hurt you, but you have to understand, this is bigger than just you and me. This is about my family's future. So the last 2 years meant nothing? I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. They meant something, he said, but not what you thought. We had fun, Amora, but I never promised you forever. You knew who I was, who my family is. Surely you understood what that meant. Each word landed like a knife. I thought about the child I had carried, the quiet hopes I had held, the life I had dreamed of, a life he had thrown away like it was nothing. I understand perfectly now, I said. I hope we can remain professional, Ethan said. You are valuable to the company. I would hate to lose you over a personal matter, as if our love had been a footnote in his story. You won't lose me, I said calmly. The words dry on my tongue. Not yet. A plan had already started to form in my mind. I said calmly, I am not going anywhere. Relief spread across Ethan's face. He believed me. That only confirmed how little he truly knew me. How little he had ever known. I knew you would understand. Ethan said with a soft smile, you have always been so practical. He glanced over his shoulder toward the ballroom. I should get back to Vivian. Take all the time you need out here. After he left, I reached into my clutch, pulled out my phone, and sent a quick message to Zara. Meet me at my place in an hour. I need help. That night, while Ethan toasted his engagement inside the ballroom, I sat on the cold tile floor of my bathroom, still in my emerald green dress, staring at a pregnancy test, positive. Clear as day, there was no room for doubt. A child, created from what I once believed was love. Zara found me still sitting there, dry-eyed and silent. What are you going to do? Zara asked gently, settling down beside me on the floor. I am not going to tell him, I replied, the decision taking shape even as I spoke it aloud. I will not be the woman who traps a man with a baby. I will not beg for what should have been given willingly. Then what? She asked, her voice cautious. I found something, I said, standing up and walking to my home office. I returned with a folder. Papers Ethan had left behind weeks earlier, thinking I would never read them. Financial records, I said, spreading them out. Mason Industries is in deeper trouble than anyone knows. And here, notes about the Chen merger. He was planning moves based on weaknesses they hoped no one would notice. Zara's eyes widened as she skimmed the documents. This is corporate gold. It is leverage, I said softly, not for revenge, not for threats, for rebuilding. What are you thinking? She asked. The idea had already settled in my mind, calm and clear. I am going to disappear, I said. I will have this baby away from Ethan and away from his lies. And while I am gone, I will build something. For myself and for my child, something that will rise higher than Mason Industries ever could. Zara looked at me, her face serious. That is a lot to take on alone. I will not be alone, I replied. I have you. And I have this. I tapped the folder gently. Knowledge is power, and Ethan gave me plenty of both. 3 days later, I walked into Ethan's office. He looked up from his desk, clearly irritated. Amora, I am in the middle of something. This will only take a moment, I said, placing an envelope neatly on his desk. My resignation. He blinked, confused. You are leaving the company. I am. But you just told me this would not affect us professionally. I said you would not lose me over something personal. I replied, this is not personal. It is a professional decision. He stood up, his tone changing. Is this about Vivian? I thought you understood. I understand everything now, I said, already turning toward the door. Wait, Ethan called. Where are you going? I paused in the doorway and looked back. That is no longer your concern. As I walked away, I felt lighter than I had in days. Ethan had taken my trust, my love, and the future I had planned with him. But he had not taken me. I still had myself, I had my child, and I had a plan that would change everything. The next morning, I was gone. There was no dramatic farewell, no confrontation, just empty closets and a silent apartment. As the plane lifted from the runway, I placed my hand on my stomach. It is just us now, I whispered softly, but not for long. We are going to build something extraordinary. The morning sun poured through the windows as I packed the last of my belongings. 3 suitcases stood by the door, one with clothes, one with important paperwork, and one with keepsakes I could not leave behind. Everything else would be stored or sold. My phone buzzed with a message. Another one from Ethan. It was the 5th that day. Amora, please, call me. We need to talk about your resignation. I deleted the message without replying. There was nothing left to say. Zara arrived carrying 2 coffees and a folder. Your flight to Singapore is confirmed for tomorrow night, she said. I booked you a serviced apartment for the first month. I took the folder with a grateful smile. Thank you for everything. Are you sure about this? She asked, completely disappearing. I nodded. If I stay, I would have to fight him, and that would mean playing by his rules. I am not doing that. I am changing the game. My laptop chimed with a new email. I opened it and smiled with relief. Professor Eleanor Chen wrote back. She agreed to meet us for lunch. Zara looked surprised. The Eleanor Chen, the very one, I said. She was my mentor in business school. She has deep connections in Asia's financial markets, and most importantly, she is someone I trust. The doorbell rang suddenly, and I tensed. Zara checked her phone. Relax, it is the real estate agent. I called earlier to get the listing started. While Zara gave the agent a tour, I made one last trip to the bank. The branch manager raised an eyebrow as I handed over a stack of forms. That is a significant amount. Miss Davis, are you certain? Completely certain, I replied, sliding the signed documents across the desk. From there, I went to see my doctor. I needed to confirm the pregnancy officially and collect the medical records. I sat in the waiting room, hands folded, my thoughts quiet but steady. I was not running. I was starting again, and this time, I would do it on my own terms. I nearly collided with Margaret Mason, Ethan's mother, as I stepped into the clinic hallway. Amora, what a surprise, she said, her eyes narrowing slightly. Are you feeling all right? I forced a polite smile and tightened my grip on the folder I carried. Just a routine checkup before I go on vacation. Vacation? How lovely, she replied with a tilt of her head. Ethan mentioned you had resigned. Such a shame. He always spoke so highly of your work. Only my work, I thought silently, never our relationship. I wondered then if she had known about Vivian all along. Yes, I said carefully, I'm taking some time to explore new opportunities. Well, don't be a stranger, she said, offering a stiff smile. The Masons always take care of their own, even former employees, I muttered under my breath as I excused myself and slipped into the bathroom. I waited there until I was sure she had been called in for her appointment. The close call only strengthened my resolve to leave quickly. Later that afternoon, I met Eleanor for lunch at a quiet restaurant far from the financial district. At 6 to 5, she was as sharp as ever. Her silver hair cut in a sleek bob that framed her intelligent, knowing eyes. Singapore is the perfect place for what you are planning, she said after I explained my situation, leaving out the pregnancy for now. That truth could wait until I had my footing. I have former students running half the venture capital firms over there. I'm not looking for handouts, I said quickly, just introductions. Eleanor laughed and shook her head. Handouts? She smiled. I would sooner expect the sun to rise in the west. She reached into her leather briefcase and pulled out a card. My former protégé runs this investment firm. Tell him I sent you. The rest will be up to you. As we finished our meal, Eleanor looked at me closely, her expression thoughtful. There's something else, isn't there? She asked. Something you have not told me. I hesitated, then placed my hand gently over my stomach. Eleanor's eyes widened in understanding. Does he know? No, I said firmly, and he will not until I am ready. She nodded slowly. This changes things. You are not just rebuilding a career, you are building a legacy. She scribbled something on a napkin and handed it to me. This is my personal address in Singapore. The apartment above my condo is empty. It's yours for as long as you need it. That evening, only one piece of my plan remained. Using a secure VPN, I sent an anonymous tip to Chen Global's biggest competitor. It detailed a vulnerability in their upcoming merger with Mason Industries. It was not illegal, just public information arranged in a way that would cause maximum disruption. Are you sure about this? Zara asked, watching from across the room. It's just business, I said, echoing Ethan's own words about our relationship, nothing personal. We both knew it was a lie. The next morning, I met with my attorney to update my will and establish a trust for my unborn child. She raised an eyebrow at the depth of my preparations but asked no questions beyond the required ones. And the father, she asked at last. Not in the picture, I said quietly. As I left her office, news alerts flashed across my phone. The first signs of fallout from my anonymous tip were appearing. Headlines questioned the stability of the Mason-Chen merger. It had begun, that night. Zara came over to help me pack the last of my belongings. Promise you will call when you land, she said, her voice thick with emotion, and send pictures of the baby. I promise, I said, hugging her tightly. You're my eyes and ears here. I need to know everything happening with Mason Industries. Already on it, Zara said, stepping back to show me her phone. I accepted their offer. Marketing director, your old job. I start next week. I laughed, even though my throat tightened. You're brilliant. I learned from the best, she said softly. Now go build your empire. The flight to Singapore was long but calm. Somewhere over the Pacific, I turned off my phone, severing the last tie to my old life. With Eleanor's list of contacts in front of me, I took notes, made plans, and mapped out my next move. I would enter the same industry as Mason Industries, but I would do it differently. I would be innovative where they were slow, flexible where they were stuck. I knew their weaknesses. I had helped build their system. Now I would use that knowledge for myself. By the time the plane touched down, I had a full outline of my business plan. The warm, heavy air hit me as I stepped outside the airport, the unfamiliar scents, the unfamiliar skyline. It was overwhelming, but exciting. A driver stood waiting with a sign bearing my name, another one of Eleanor's arrangements. As we drove through the bright, modern city, I felt something stir inside me, a calm, steady sense of purpose. I let myself smile, truly smile. For the first time in days, no one here knew my name, no one expected anything from me. I could start again. I could build something truly mine. Eleanor's apartment was spacious and clean, with floor-to-ceiling windows that opened onto a view of the glowing city. A basket sat on the kitchen counter, filled with fruit and tea, and a note. The future belongs to those bold enough to claim it. I unpacked only the essentials. On the nightstand, I placed one small photo. My parents, smiling together at a dinner party long ago. They had passed years before. But I liked to believe they would understand my choices, especially my father, who had always taught me to rise after every fall. The next morning, I woke to a message from Zara. The business world was buzzing. News of Ethan's engagement had been released, and headlines about the merger were everywhere. But behind the celebration, there were whispers, concerns about stability, about leadership, about hidden problems. The storm had only just begun. My anonymous tip had landed in just the right place. The moment had come. I dressed carefully for my first meeting with Eleanor's contact at the investment firm. As I applied a soft layer of lipstick, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the mirror. My eyes looked different now, clearer, more focused. There was strength in my face that had not been there before. I rested a hand on my still flat stomach and whispered, "We have got this." The next 6 months passed in a blur. Back-to-back meetings, writing business plans, and attending regular doctor appointments. As my pregnancy progressed, so did the foundation of my new company. Eleanor's network opened doors I could not have imagined accessing on my own. Her belief in me had become one of my greatest assets. I named the company Phoenix Innovations. It felt right. Something rising out of the ashes of a life I had left behind. We focused on the same core technologies as Mason Industries, but with a difference. Our emphasis was on sustainability and reaching into emerging markets. As my belly grew rounder, so did my list of investors. Thanks to my own experience and Eleanor's backing, securing initial funding was easier than expected. By the time I entered my third trimester, I had an office, a small but capable team, and a working prototype. Updates from Zara back home confirmed what I had long suspected. Mason Industries was faltering. Despite the merger, their competitors had launched aggressive campaigns, squeezing their market share. Ethan had tried to contact me many times, but when each lead went cold, he eventually gave up. Then, on a rainy Tuesday morning in my 7th month, my phone rang. Zara's special ringtone filled the room. "It is happening," Zara said the moment I picked up. "The engagement is off." Vivian walked away from both the wedding and the merger. Mason Industries stock is crashing. I should have felt victorious. But instead, there was an odd emptiness inside me. The revenge I had carefully crafted was unfolding perfectly. Yet it felt hollow. "Are you still there?" Zara asked. "Yes," I said softly, watching the rain slide down my office window. "Send me the full details later. I have another call coming in." That night, with my hands resting over my belly and feeling my child move, I finally understood what was missing. This journey was no longer about revenge, it had become something deeper. It was about building, about creating something meaningful that would outlast pain. 2 months later, I held my son Leo in my arms for the first time. As I looked at his tiny face, so much like his father's, I was struck by how complicated life truly was. It was not as simple as business strategies or payback plans, but as I signed the documents from my hospital bed, finalizing Phoenix Innovations' first major deal. A contract that positioned us in direct competition with Mason Industries in the Asian market. I knew one thing with absolute clarity: I would give my son everything Ethan had denied us: a future, a legacy, an empire. 2 years passed in a rush of growth. For both Leo and Phoenix Innovations, Leo took his first steps in our Singapore office, toddling between desks while our staff smiled and reached to steady him. His nursery wall at home featured a mural of a phoenix rising from flames, painted by a local artist who had no idea just how personal that image was to me. "Ms. Davis, the Tokyo investors are on line 3, my assistant called out as I bent down to catch Leo before he could knock over a stack of contracts. "Tell them I will call back in 10 minutes, I said, scooping Leo up. "Someone needs his lunch first." Mrs. Chen, Leo's nanny, appeared at the doorway with her usual perfect timing. "Board meeting today?" she asked, taking Leo gently from my arms. "How did you know?" I asked, adjusting my collar. She gave it a quick pat and replied, "You always wear the red suit for important meetings. It is a powerful color." I smiled. Mrs. Chen had started as Leo's caregiver, but her previous life as a bank manager had made her an unexpected source of business wisdom. More than once, her offhand comments about market trends had proven strikingly accurate. "The Thompson contract," she said, bouncing Leo lightly on her hip, "offer 10% less than what they asked. They need this more than they are saying." I raised an eyebrow. "And how do you know that?" "My nephew works in their accounting department," she said with a wink. "It came up at family dinner." She turned, speaking to Leo in rapid Mandarin, which he was beginning to understand. I made a quick note to revise our offer. Over the past year, Mrs. Chen's family dinner talk had saved us millions. The board meeting went smoothly. Phoenix Innovations had exceeded our projected growth for the 4th straight quarter. Our eco-friendly manufacturing had drawn attention from major players, and our products were steadily gaining ground across Asian markets. "We have received acquisition offers from 3 multinationals," my CFO reported, sliding folders across the conference table. I did not even open them. "We are not selling. They are very generous," he said. I shook my head. Phoenix was not built to be bought, it was built to become the one that buys. During a break, Zara's ringtone buzzed again. I stepped outside to take the call. "You will not believe this," she said, excitement bubbling in her voice. "Chen Global has completely pulled out of all joint ventures with Mason Industries. Vivian's father is now looking to invest in your sector." My heart began to race. "Send me everything you have on their portfolio." This was the moment I had been waiting for without even realizing it. Chen Global had the resources to lift Phoenix to global dominance, and to deal the final, quiet blow to Mason Industries. "There is more," Zara added. "Ethan has been demoted. His father brought in outside management after the failed merger." Zara said over the phone, "Profits are down, and Ethan is barely holding on to his role at the company." I should have felt triumphant. Instead, a strange heaviness settled in my chest. I looked across my office to where Leo was napping on a little couch in the corner, a soft blanket tucked under his chin. Mrs. Chen sat beside him, reading quietly. His face, so much like Ethan's, had become even more defined now that he had grown from a baby into a lively toddler. "Amora, are you still there?" Zara asked gently. "Yes," I replied, pulling my focus back. "Set up a meeting with Mr. Chen for when I am in Hong Kong next month, and do not mention my previous ties to Mason Industries." That evening, I studied the quarterly reports Zara had sent over. Mason Industries was not collapsing as spectacularly as I once imagined, but there was no question they were struggling. In every market where Phoenix had launched competing products, Mason's numbers had slipped. Just then, Leo padded into my home office in his dinosaur pajamas, holding his favorite stuffed pterodactyl. "Mima, work?" he asked, climbing onto my lap. "Mima's always working," I said with a soft sigh. Closing my laptop and giving him my full attention, he reached up and patted my cheek with his small hand. Like DA, his question caught me by surprise. We had never spoken of his father. "What do you know about DA?" I asked gently. Leo pointed to the photo on my desk. The frame held a snapshot from a company picnic. Me, laughing, as Ethan tried to fly a kite in too little wind. It was the only relic from my past that I had kept in view, a reminder of how easily charm could mask betrayal. "That's DA," Leo said with quiet confidence. "Mrs. Chen told me." I made a mental note to have a serious conversation with Mrs. Chen about boundaries. "What else did she tell you?" I asked. Leo looked thoughtful. "Does Dada work too much too?" His words landed like a weight in my chest. "Yes," I said softly, brushing a lock of hair from his forehead. "Dada works too much too." Later that night, after I tucked Leo into bed, I found Mrs. Chen in the hallway, gathering her things to leave for the evening. "You told Leo about his father," I said, not bothering to hide my frustration. She met my eyes without hesitation. "Children need to know where they come from," Mrs. Chen said. "Even when the story is complicated, it was not your place," I said firmly. "No disrespect, Miss Davis," she said calmly. "But a boy needs more than a company for his inheritance. You are building him an empire." "That is true, but what about his heart?" Her words lingered in my thoughts long after she had gone. I sat in my bedroom later, scrolling through old photos of Ethan on my tablet, trying to reconcile the man who had betrayed me with the father Leo might never know. Unless I changed that, the very idea startled me. Could I return? Could I face Ethan and tell him the truth about Leo? My phone chimed just then. It was an email from Mr. Chen's office confirming our meeting in Hong Kong, one more step toward the ultimate business victory. Yet Mrs. Chen's words echoed in my mind. What about his heart? The meeting in Hong Kong went better than I could have imagined. Mr. Chen, a sharp businessman in his early 60s, listened carefully as I presented Phoenix Innovations' growth strategy. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair, clearly impressed. "Very impressive, Miss Davis," he said. "Your company has done in 2 years what takes most businesses a decade." "Thank you, Mr. Chen," I replied. "But tell me," he continued, narrowing his eyes slightly, "why target Mason Industries so directly? Your products match theirs almost exactly, but yours are improved in ways that seem designed to take advantage of their weakest points." I kept my voice even. I identified market gaps that a more innovative company could fill, that is all. He smiled, a knowing kind of smile. "Of course, just business." By the end of our meeting, we had a partnership outline in place. Phoenix Innovations would soon have access to Chen Global's powerful distribution channels across North America. Right in Mason's backyard, as I stood to leave, Mr. Chen offered one last remark. "You know," he said, "my daughter Vivian once said that Mason would regret his choices. I am beginning to understand why." I turned back to him. "I am not sure I follow." He handed me his personal business card. "Let us just say," Mr. Chen said, "I recognize someone who is building from both passion and pain. Call me when you are ready to bring this full circle. Some stories deserve proper endings." Did he know about Ethan, about Leo? I could not tell, but his words left me unsettled. On the long flight back to Singapore, I looked at Leo, fast asleep in the seat beside me. His tiny fingers curled around his stuffed toy, and I made a decision. Phoenix Innovations was strong now, strong enough to stand on its own. It was time to return, not to make peace, but to finish what I had started, to show Ethan Mason exactly what he had thrown away. I called Zara from the airport. "I need you to find me an office and a place to live in the city," I said without introduction. "Phoenix Innovations is opening its North American headquarters." There was a stunned pause on the other end of the line. "You are serious?" Zara gasped. "You are coming back, with Leo?" "Yes," I said, watching my son as he slept. "It is time Ethan Mason saw what his betrayal created." Zara's voice dropped. "You do know, with Chen Global behind you, your return could destroy Mason Industries completely." "I know," I whispered, and I meant every word. His little face was calm, completely unaware of the storm we were about to walk into. "Not destroy," I corrected softly to myself. "Transform." Everything was about to change. The following month became a blur of preparation. I assigned my trusted team in Singapore to manage day-to-day operations while I focused on building the North American division from the ground up. Mrs. Chen, who had become my closest advisor and a steady presence in both business and parenting, agreed to relocate with us. Her guidance was no longer helpful, it was essential. The night before we left, I sat with Leo on our balcony, the warm breeze brushing past us as the lights of the Singapore skyline twinkled in the distance. It had been our home, our shelter. "We are going to a new home tomorrow," I said gently, pointing out the tallest buildings on the horizon. "It is where Mama grew up." Leo looked up at me with wide eyes, his voice quiet and curious. "Will Dada be there?" It was the question I had feared, the one I knew would come. My heart tightened. "Yes," I said, after a pause. "Dada will be there." "Will he like me?" he whispered, his small fingers curling around mine. I pulled him into my arms, holding him close as a lump rose in my throat. For all my success in business, for all my carefully laid plans, I had not prepared for this. Leo wondering if he would be loved by his own father. My pursuit of revenge had created a child who questioned his worth. "He will love you," I promised, though I had no right to speak for Ethan, who would not love you. The next day, as our plane rose into the sky, I looked down at the city that had protected us and given us strength. Singapore had been our cocoon. Now it was time for the phoenix to rise again, to return to the place where it had first burned. I opened my laptop mid-flight and sent a short, clear message to the board of Mason Industries, announcing the expansion of Phoenix Innovations into their territory. I did not include Ethan in the email. He would hear about it soon enough, ready or not. I whispered as the coastline faded beneath the clouds. "Here we come." The city skyline had changed in the 3 years I had been gone. New glass towers reached high into the sky, and the once impressive Mason Industries headquarters now stood in the shadow of newer, taller buildings. I adjusted my sunglasses as the car pulled in front of our new penthouse. "Is this home now, Mama?" Leo asked, his nose pressed to the window, eyes full of wonder. "For now," I replied, giving his small hand a gentle squeeze. Zara was waiting in the lobby, nearly bouncing with excitement. She rushed forward to hug me tightly, then crouched down to meet Leo at eye level. "You must be the famous Leo," she said with a warm smile. "Your mom has told me so much about you." Leo hid shyly behind my legs, overwhelmed by the new city and unfamiliar faces. Mrs. Chen stepped out of the car behind us, already directing the movers and managing our luggage with her usual efficiency. "The apartment is perfect," Zara said as we rode the elevator to the top floor, "and the office space is ready. The Phoenix Innovations logo went up on the building yesterday." "Any word from Mason Industries yet?" I asked. Zara's grin answered for her. "Their stock dropped 8 points when the news broke that you were partnering with Chen Global and opening offices here," she said. "The business blogs are full of theories, and Ethan, completely blindsided. Word is, he nearly flipped a conference table when he heard." I should have felt victorious, but as I watched Leo explore our new apartment, his small footsteps echoing in the quiet rooms, I felt something else, a hollow ache. This was no longer just about business. This was about Leo. This was about a little boy meeting the father he had never known, and that part I had not fully thought through. "Does he know about Leo?" Zara asked, her voice low, gentle. I shook my head. "Not yet." Our new office took up the entire 15th floor of a sleek building with a panoramic view of the financial district. Just 6 blocks away stood Mason Industries. I had chosen this location carefully. The following week was filled with back-to-back meetings, press interviews, and office setup. The business world was fascinated by the rise of Phoenix Innovations and its mysterious founder. I kept my answers poised and polished, revealing nothing about my personal history or connection to Ethan. Your company has entered several markets previously dominated by Mason, one financial reporter noted during an interview. Is there a personal reason behind this competition? Business is always personal, I said with a measured smile, but Phoenix is about innovation, not rivalry. The reporter looked unconvinced but let the matter rest. Leo, meanwhile, adapted to his new life with the quiet resilience children often have. He began asking about his father more often. His questions simple but persistent. Mrs. Chen enrolled him in a highly regarded preschool, where his intelligence and gentle nature quickly made him a favorite among the teachers. The boy has leadership qualities, Mrs. Chen said one afternoon, watching him play with a group of classmates. Her voice was steady, but there was a softness in her eyes. I smiled faintly, though a storm of emotions stirred inside me. Leo deserved the truth, and soon. The man who had once promised me forever would come face to face with the living proof of what we once shared. Mrs. Chen informed me one quiet evening, her voice carefully neutral. He takes after both his parents. I chose to let the comment pass without response. There was no need to acknowledge the implication. 10 days after our arrival, fate took control before I could move into the next stage of my plan. It happened during a weekend visit to the Museum of Science and Industry. A special treat for Leo. As we turned a corner near one of the interactive exhibits, I walked straight into someone. "I am so sorry," the man said automatically, stepping back. Then he froze, his eyes locking onto mine as recognition dawned. Amora, it was Ethan. He looked older. There were faint lines around his eyes that had not been there 3 years ago. His suit was still tailored to perfection, but there was a difference in how he carried himself. Less confident, more cautious. "Hello, Ethan," I said, trying to keep my voice even. His gaze shifted quickly from me to Leo, who was clutching my hand and staring up at him with wide-eyed curiosity. "This is my son," I said quietly. I saw the shift in Ethan's face. The moment when understanding dawned, the math was easy to do. His expression paled. "How old is he?" Ethan asked, his voice barely audible. "I'm 3, Leo said proudly before I could answer. "Almost 4, Ethan stared at him, studying the shape of Leo's eyes, the dark hair, the little cleft in his chin, features that mirrored his own. "We should go," I said, tightening my grip on Leo's hand and beginning to turn away. "Wait," Ethan said, reaching out as if to touch my arm, but stopping short. "Please, can we talk, Mama?" "Who is this man?" Leo asked, looking up at me. The silence stretched. I had imagined this encounter so many times, on my terms, in a setting I controlled, with carefully chosen words and emotional distance. But life had other plans, and now, I stood unprepared. "This is an old friend," I said, keeping my voice gentle. "Like Mr. Mason?" Leo asked, referring to the building downtown with Ethan's picture in the lobby. Ethan laughed softly, and for a moment, it sounded real. "Yes," he said, crouching down to Leo's level, "exactly like that." He stayed at a respectful distance, but it was clear he longed to be closer. "It is very nice to meet you, Leo," Ethan said warmly. I checked my watch with purpose, making sure he noticed. "We have an appointment to get to," I said. "Of course," Ethan said, standing straight again. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card. "This is my personal number. Please, Amora, there is so much we need to talk about." I took the card but said nothing, offering neither promise nor refusal. "It was nice to meet you, Leo," Ethan said again, his voice thick with something he was trying to hold back. As we walked away, Leo looked over his shoulder. "Mama, he looks like me." "Yes," I whispered, "he does." That night, after Leo had fallen asleep, I paced the living room of our new apartment, Ethan's business card heavy in my pocket. The unexpected meeting had shaken the foundation of the plan I had worked so hard to build. Everything had been mapped out. When and how to tell him. what to say, how to keep control. But now, the timing was no longer mine. My phone rang. It was Zara, calling after I had texted her about what happened. "What are you going to do?" Zara asked. "I am going to stick to the plan," I answered, though I could hear the hesitation in my own voice. "The Chen Global Partnership announcement is on Monday," Zara reminded me. "That was always going to bring Ethan back into the picture. But now he has seen Leo." I sighed. "Yes, that changes everything." When Monday came, I held the announcement event at the same hotel where Ethan had once declared his engagement to Vivian. It was a deliberate choice. The symmetry was not lost on the reporters who filled the conference room. Mr. Chen stood beside me at the podium, his presence calm and commanding as he officially announced Chen Global's major investment in Phoenix Innovations and our joint venture, an initiative that would directly challenge Mason Industries' hold on the market. "A vision for the future," I told the assembled press, "one that embraces innovation over tradition and progress over preservation." Cameras flashed as we shook hands. The message was unmistakable. Mason Industries was being outpaced. Our partnership had changed the game. As the crowd began to disperse, I spotted a familiar figure near the back. Vivian Chen, poised and elegant in a navy suit, her expression was unreadable. Our eyes met for a moment before she turned and walked out. I excused myself and followed her into the hotel bar. "Vivian," I called gently. She turned, unsurprised. "Amora Davis," she said evenly, "the mysterious founder of Phoenix Innovations." Her tone was cool but not unkind, though not so mysterious to some of us, she added, taking a sip of her drink. I sat down beside her. "I assume you have figured it out, that I was with Ethan before your engagement." Vivian nodded. "Yes, and judging by the timing of your disappearance and the adorable little boy I saw in that photo, there is clearly more to the story." I felt my guard rise. "You have been researching me." Vivian smiled slightly. "Know your allies as well as your opponents. Business 101. "And which one am I?" I asked softly. "That depends," she said, setting down her glass. "My father seems quite taken with your company. And with you, Mr. Chen is a sharp businessman," I said, "and a good judge of character." Vivian looked at me thoughtfully. "Yes, he is." Vivian studied me closely, her expression unreadable. "He believed you had good reasons for targeting Mason Industries so directly," she said calmly. "And honestly, I am inclined to agree." I stayed silent, unwilling to offer more than necessary. "Ethan was a mistake," Vivian continued, surprising me with her bluntness. "For both of us, it seems, though it looks like you came away with something far more valuable from that relationship. If you are referring to my son," I began. "I am referring to your motivation," she interrupted, her tone measured but firm. "Nothing drives success faster than righteous anger. Trust me, I know." The conversation was not going the way I had imagined. I had expected tension, suspicion, even hostility from Vivian. What I found instead was something closer to a strange, unexpected sense of alliance. "Mason Industries is vulnerable," she said, sliding a folder across the bar. I had not even noticed her placing it there. "Their new product line has some serious design flaws." Ethan pushed it through despite warnings from the engineering team. I looked at the folder but did not touch it. "Why are you giving this to me?" "Let's call it women's solidarity," Vivian replied, standing as she smoothed the already perfect lines of her suit. "Or better yet, let's call it a strategic alliance. My father wants Chen Global to support the winning side in this industry shift, and more, that looks like Phoenix." After she left, I finally opened the folder. Inside were internal reports from Mason Industries detailing product testing results. The data showed serious safety issues, concerns that had been minimized or completely overlooked. This was corporate gold, the kind of information that could topple a company if used correctly. I stared at the papers for a long time. The weight of what I held in my hands was enormous. Using this would not just damage Mason Industries, it would devastate them. Jobs would be lost, families would be affected. Was my revenge worth that cost? My phone buzzed with a message from Mrs. Chen. Leo's school called. He told the class his father owns Mason Building. Teacher concerned about his imagination. I handled it. Reality settled in again. This was not just about business anymore, not just about payback. My son was beginning to invent stories, trying to understand a man he had only seen once. Across a crowded museum floor, a man who had no idea Leo existed. And no matter how deeply he had hurt me, Ethan still had the right to know the child he had unknowingly fathered. That evening, I finally called the number on Ethan's card. "We need to talk," I said when he picked up. "About Leo." "About everything. Name the time and place," Ethan replied without hesitation. "Tomorrow, Phoenix offices, 9:00 a.m. I will be there." As I ended the call, I stared out at the glittering skyline, unsure whether I was about to undo everything I had worked so hard to build, or finally make things right. The next morning, the Phoenix Innovations lobby gleamed with soft gold sunlight as I waited for Ethan to arrive. I had deliberately scheduled the meeting early, before normal office hours. To avoid unnecessary attention, my assistant had been instructed to hold all calls, and security had been told to bring Ethan straight to my office. At exactly 9:00, the elevator doors opened. Ethan stepped out wearing a charcoal suit. He looked confident at first glance, but the tension in his shoulders gave him away. "Your security is impressive," Ethan said as I led him into my office. "They checked my ID 3 times. Safety is a priority," I replied, gesturing toward the chair across from my desk, "especially now that I have Leo." At the mention of his son's name, Ethan's polished exterior cracked. "He's mine, isn't he?" Ethan asked, his voice low, hesitant. I nodded and met his gaze. "Leo is my son." The words hung heavily between us, loaded with 3 years of silence, pain, and everything left unsaid. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, his voice tight with restraint. "You were pregnant when you disappeared." "I found out the same day you announced your engagement to Vivian," I said evenly. Not exactly the right moment to share baby news with the man who just told me our relationship had been nothing more than a distraction. Ethan winced. "It wasn't like that, wasn't it?" I replied, cool but calm. "We had fun, Amora. But I never promised you forever." I quoted him word for word, the memory sharp in my mind. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture I remembered too well. "I was wrong. I said things I did not mean. I was trying to convince myself I was doing the right thing. For the family, for the company." "And now?" I asked, motioning around the room, with its view of the city skyline and the Phoenix name on the glass. "Phoenix Innovations is chipping away at everything Mason Industries built over generations. Is that the right thing for your family now?" His jaw tightened. "So that is what this has been about, building a company to destroy mine. Using our son as part of your revenge. Do not you dare," I snapped, my voice sharp with sudden heat. "Leo has been protected from all of this. He knows nothing about our history or my decisions. Until he saw you at the museum, he did not even know what his father looked like." Ethan's anger softened. "I am sorry. That was unfair." He leaned forward, and his voice grew quiet. "I just want to know my son, Amora. Whatever happened between us, whatever mistakes I made. Please do not take that away from me." The sincerity in his voice caught me off guard. This was not the same man who had broken my heart. This was a father, unsure and desperate to be part of his child's life. "I did not come back to destroy you, Ethan," I said quietly. "I came back to show you, and myself, what you lost." I slid a folder across the desk. It was not the folder Vivian had given me. It was something more personal. Photos of Leo, from the day he was born until now, his first smile, his first steps, his first day of preschool, all the things Ethan had missed. His hands trembled slightly as he opened the folder. His eyes scanned the pictures, slowly, reverently. "He looks just like my father," Ethan whispered, pausing at a photo from Leo's 3rd birthday. "He has your smile," I added. "And your stubborn streak." A ghost of a smile passed over Ethan's face. Poor kid. The tension in the room began to ease as he studied each photo, asking about Leo's personality, his habits. The little things only a parent would want to know. "He's obsessed with building things," I told him. "He takes apart his toys just to see how they work. Like father, like son," Ethan murmured, pride rising in his voice as he looked up at me. I turned serious once more. "What happens now, Amora? Where do we go from here?" Ethan asked quietly. It was the same question I had been asking myself ever since we crossed paths again. My carefully planned revenge had never included a final act, just the satisfaction of watching him fall, but now, I found myself standing at the edge of something more complicated. That depends, I said cautiously. Mason Industries is in trouble, is it not? And not just because of Phoenix. Ethan looked genuinely surprised. How did you? I have my sources, I said, cutting him off gently. The new product line has serious flaws you approved. Even after the engineering team raised concerns, his tone turned defensive. Those reports were confidential. And yet, I said, leaning forward slightly, they ended up on my desk. He fell silent. You are not just facing a few technical setbacks, Ethan, I continued. You are on the verge of a public safety scandal, one that could not just hurt Mason Industries, but end it altogether. Is that what you want? Ethan asked, his voice quieter now. To see everything my family built reduced to dust, the question hovered in the air between us. Years ago, I would have answered without hesitation. I would have said yes, but the woman I was now, the mother, the founder, the leader, was not driven by destruction. No, I said softly, that is not what I want. Relief flickered across his face. What I want, I said firmly, is a future for Leo, one that includes his father, if that father proves himself worthy. What I want is acknowledgement of what I have built, not in spite of your betrayal, but because of it. Phoenix Innovations is not a revenge project, Ethan. It is a better company. We make better products. We live by better values. You want a merger, he said, realization dawning, a partnership. I corrected him. But with clear conditions. I laid out my vision. A restructured company that would combine Phoenix's innovation with Mason's history and manufacturing strength. A company where we would share leadership, not as his subordinate, as his equal. My father will never agree to this, Ethan said slowly, though I could see the idea taking root. Your father is not the CEO anymore, I reminded him. I raised an eyebrow. Or has that changed too? He shook his head. No, I am still CEO. Just with a shorter leash after the whole Vivian situation. Then act like one. I said, meeting his gaze. Save your company. Make the difficult decision. Make the right one. He sat in silence for a long time, weighing everything. His pride, his family's expectations, his future, and if I agree to this business partnership, he asked finally, what about my relationship with Leo? That has to be earned, I replied, my tone leaving no room for misinterpretation. Not through lawyers or announcements, through presence, through effort, through showing up, every single day. The way you should have from the beginning. He nodded slowly. I want to meet him, properly, this time, Sunday, I said, the park near my apartment, 1 hour, supervised. Gratitude filled his face. Thank you, he said, as he stood to leave. He paused at the door. For what it is worth, Amora. Not a day goes by that I do not regret letting you go. What I did, choosing family obligation over love, it cost me everything that really mattered. I said nothing. My voice would not cooperate. Some wounds had stopped bleeding, but they were not healed yet. The following Sunday, the sky was bright and clear. Leo was excited, skipping along beside me, eager to see the man from the museum who looks like me. I had explained carefully who Ethan was, but I knew it would take time for him to understand it fully. As we approached the playground, I spotted Ethan sitting on a bench. He looked nervous. There was a wrapped package beside him. When he saw us, he stood quickly, eyes fixed on Leo. A mix of wonder and fear in his expression. Hello, Leo, Ethan said gently as we reached him. Do you remember me? Leo studied him for a long moment, his small face thoughtful. You are Mr. Mason, from the museum. That's right, Ethan said with a smile, crouching to his level. But you can call me Ethan, if you like. Their first interaction was awkward but full of emotion. A father trying not to scare his child, a child, drawn to the familiarity of the man's face. The wrapped gift turned out to be a building set, filled with gears and tiny motors. Chosen with care, Leo's eyes lit up as he unwrapped it, his fingers already reaching for the pieces. Ethan looked up, meeting my eyes. The gratitude there was undeniable. Thank you, he mouthed silently. I gave a small nod in return. It was not forgiveness, but it was something. 6 months later. The business world was still buzzing about the unexpected formation of the Phoenix Mason Alliance, a new corporate entity combining the best of both companies. The media called it the business story of the year, a surprising partnership between a legacy empire and a rising star. But they did not know the real story. They did not see the quiet compromises, the long conversations, the slow rebuilding of trust, not just between two executives, but between two people who had once loved each other. On the day we unveiled the new logo, we stood on stage together, in the same hotel ballroom where everything had begun 4 years earlier. Leo sat proudly in the front row, wearing a tiny suit and a proud smile. Phoenix Mason represents more than a business merger, I told the gathered crowd of journalists and industry leaders. It represents transformation, the courage to rebuild something stronger from what was broken. Ethan stepped forward to speak. Some partnerships are written in contracts, he said. The best ones are written in shared vision and mutual respect. Our eyes met as applause filled the room. We were not back together. That path, if we ever chose to take it, would require time and care, but we had built something together. Something that honored our past and made space for a future. That evening, as Leo played on the office floor with his building set, in a space that now connected to Ethan's, I stood at the window watching the sunset paint the city gold. Ethan came to stand beside me. No regrets, he asked softly. I smiled, watching our son build towers with focused joy. No regrets, I said. Every step brought me here, not to perfect revenge, not to perfect forgiveness, but to something better. We had created a future, one built on honesty, growth, and the lessons we had paid for dearly. A legacy for Leo that carried the strength of both his parents and the hard-won wisdom of their journey. Sometimes, disappearing is not about running away. Sometimes, it is about finding the space to become exactly who you were meant to be. Thank you for watching today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below, so feel free to share your opinions. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more great stories. We'll see you in the next video.